Imagine being a soldier in a war. You have weapons, ammunition, military planning, and the full backing of your government. Your enemy? Not another army. Not rebels, not invaders, but birds. Thousands of them. And somehow you're losing. In 1932, Australia found itself trapped in one of the strangest military conflicts in history. A conflict so bizarre that it sounds like satire, yet every word of it is true. This is the story of the Emu War, the time Australia declared war on giant flightless birds and ended up becoming the punchline of history. To understand how this happened, we need to travel to Western Australia during the Great Depression. The world economy had collapsed, jobs were disappearing, money was scarce, and many Australian veterans who had fought in World War I were struggling to rebuild their lives. To help them, the government offered farmland in remote areas, encouraging former soldiers to become farmers. At first, it seemed like a good idea. The veterans worked hard, clearing land and planting wheat, but farming in the harsh Australian landscape was never easy. Droughts, poor soil, and falling crop prices made survival difficult. Then came an unexpected enemy. Every year, around 20,000 emus migrated across Western Australia after their breeding season. Standing nearly 6 feet tall, capable of running at speeds up to 50 kilometers per hour, and equipped with powerful legs, emus were already impressive creatures. But to struggling farmers, they were a nightmare. The birds descended upon wheat fields in massive numbers. They ate crops, trampled young plants, and destroyed fences. Once the fences were damaged, rabbits poured into the fields and caused even more destruction. For farmers already on the edge of financial ruin, the emus felt like a disaster. The veterans became increasingly frustrated. After all, many of these men had survived machine guns, artillery, and the trenches of World War I. Yet now they were being defeated by birds. Desperate for help, they appealed to the government. And the government made a decision that would go down in history. Instead of sending agricultural experts or building stronger defenses, they sent soldiers, real soldiers, armed with real machine guns. The military operation began in November 1932 under the command of Major Meredith. His force was equipped with Lewis machine guns and thousands of rounds of ammunition. On paper, victory seemed guaranteed. How hard could it be to defeat a bunch of oversized birds? Very hard, it turned out. The first encounter happened near a group of emus gathered in an open area. Soldiers prepared their machine guns and waited until the birds were within range. Then they opened fire. The emus immediately scattered in every direction. The birds moved so quickly and unpredictably that the gunners struggled to hit them. Instead of a concentrated target, they now faced thousands of sprinting birds zigzagging across the landscape. Only a handful were killed. It was an embarrassing start, but things were about to get worse. A few days later, the military spotted a much larger flock, around 1,000 emus. This looked like the perfect opportunity. The soldiers positioned their machine guns and prepared for a devastating attack. As soon as they opened fire, the gun jammed. The emus escaped. Again, at this point, the birds seemed almost impossible to defeat. They weren't charging into battle like soldiers. They weren't standing still. They were spreading out, running in different directions, and using the terrain to their advantage. Major Meredith later described the emus with a mixture of frustration and admiration. According to him, the birds appeared to have leaders. Some emus acted like scouts, keeping watch for danger. When soldiers approached, these lookout birds would signal the flock, which would then scatter before effective fire could be delivered. Whether this was true military strategy or simply normal animal behavior, it certainly felt like the emus were outsmarting their human opponents. The military tried new tactics. At one point, they mounted a machine gun onto a truck, hoping to chase down the birds. It sounded brilliant. In reality, it was a disaster. The truck bounced violently over rough terrain, The gunner couldn't aim properly, and the vehicle couldn't keep pace with the fast-moving emus. The soldiers fired wildly while being tossed around in the back. The emus escaped once again. Imagine surviving the horrors of World War I only to spend your days racing birds across the Australian countryside while your machine gun shakes uncontrollably in the back of a truck. The operation was rapidly becoming ridiculous. Still, the military continued firing thousands of rounds. The results were disappointing. Reports suggested that nearly 10,000 bullets had been used, while only a fraction of that number of birds had been killed. The efficiency was terrible. News of the campaign spread across Australia. Newspapers eagerly reported the strange conflict. The public found it hilarious. Politicians faced growing criticism. Why was the military spending time and resources fighting birds while the country was struggling through economic hardship? The pressure became too much. After only a few weeks, the government officially withdrew the soldiers. The emus remained, and technically they had won. The military had been unable to achieve its objective. The birds continued roaming the countryside, eating crops and frustrating farmers. Australia had entered a war against emus. Australia had machine guns. The emus had feathers. And somehow the emus came out on top. But the story didn't end there. Farmers continued requesting military assistance over the following years. Smaller operations were conducted and thousands of emus were eventually culled. Yet the original campaign remained a symbol of failure. In the end, Australia discovered a simple truth. Nature doesn't always follow human plans. The emus weren't evil. They weren't trying to wage war. They were simply following ancient migration routes that existed long before farms, fences, or machine guns appeared. The real battle wasn't between humans and birds. It was between human expectations and the unpredictable realities of the natural world. Today, the Emu War has become one of history's most famous oddities. It's often told as a joke, and admittedly, it's a very funny one. But beneath the humor lies a fascinating lesson about arrogance, adaptation, and the limits of human control. Because sometimes, the most advanced technology can be defeated by something far simpler. Sometimes, military strategy means nothing against an opponent that refuses to play by the rules. And sometimes, history's strangest victories belong not to generals or governments, but to a flock of giant birds running across the Australian outback. The next time someone tells you that humans always dominate nature, remember the Emu War, the war where an army arrived with machine guns and left with excuses. If you enjoyed this unbelievable piece of history, hit like, subscribe, and join us for more hidden stories that sound too crazy to be true.